Okay, welcome to video number 2. We're going to paint some blossoms now. Now what I'm going to do is take this this plate that I just showed you in the last one, since I have it all sanded up. It's kind of ready to go. I'm going to use some of my green color, my base color. This is just a dirty gray color that I had. Sometimes I have it slightly on the yellow side, sometimes on the green side. It doesn't make a real difference because I paint my backgrounds as I go. And so I'll use my smaller brush here. You can use your bigger brush. I'm going to put a little bit of my color out here. Let me show you just how fast you can paint a nice little design here with the Paint It Simply. So we'll put a little bit of our color out here, and it slides nicely over the surface. And you notice you get wonderful coverage with these paints. You get wonderful, wonderful colors because they're so heavy pigmented. Okay, so I'll just set that here over to the side. Now I'm going to want to add a little extender to that, so I'm just going to brush a little bit of that through. Now, if you are, you're new to painting, okay, you haven't done it before, you need your pattern. Put your pattern on, okay, and put your pattern on pretty dark, and then just give a light coat so you can still see some of your pattern through your painting here. Now, I don't want to have this real heavy, so I got that a little heavy, so I'm just going to take some of that off a little bit. There we go. Now, a lot of times what I'll do with the background, and you'll see in many of the lessons and everything, is I'll do a little bit of modeling of color. So, sometimes if I'm going to paint some green leaves and stuff like that in through these areas, I'll go ahead and I'll just model up. I know my green leaves are going to be into this area. And you notice I move my brush in many different directions. This is part of painting casual. You want to be a casual painter. You don't sit there and do this. You don't want to do that. You want to move your brush in many directions. Okay, and so this is just some of my greens right off my palette, and I'll just model that up through the outside here. Maybe I'm going to take a little bit of reds or something like that. Maybe I'll have some suggestions of some other stuff going on. So I'll put a little bit of my reds into my background. The backgrounds create so much movement. What you got to remember is your backgrounds are one of the largest areas of your painting, and your background is the very first color that people perceive, in a painting. So you want to make sure, if I do it like right now, I have a green, kind of greenish plate, so you're saying green, okay? So you want to make sure that your background is kind of a color you like, and it's kind of close to what you want to do, okay? So so I have some colors on here. I have some movement on here. We want to come in here and we want to paint a little blossom. So I'm just going to take a little dark color. Normally, what I'll do is I'll take like a red violet or brown or something like that, and I'll sketch on a little blossom. So if I'm going to paint a little blossom here like this, and the blossom I'm going to do as a little oval, and let's just say I do another one here like this, and let's just do a little bud of one down here like this. Okay, so I'm going to have these blossoms sit up here like this. So this gives me some ideas for it. Now, I know I want to have the center, so I'll take a little bit of my brown and a little bit of my red. Now, I like red violet. Red violet is, you just model this together. Notice I'm not stroking on the paddle. I'm tapping it together and modeling it together. Okay, you tap it together and model it together. And you can soften the edges of that, incorporate those together into your wet background. Just use your finger like this. And I can draw out and soften these little blossoms out like this so I don't have that line, just so I can start to see my idea for my blossoms there. I start to see that. Maybe I'm going to have a little, but I'm going to do this more as a bud, so I won't have quite as much as a center there. Now, sometimes I will come in and say, okay, before I even get going, sometimes I do this after, sometimes before. There's no set rule. There's no set, do this, do this, do this. You're the artist. You can do anything. You paint what the painting needs. You don't follow a step 1, step 2, step 3. You paint what the painting needs. In decorative painting, we normally went from a base coat to a shadow to a highlight. And in here, we'll start anywhere we need. A shadow can sit on a light, and a light can sit on a shadow. You can do anything that you want here. Okay, so I may come in here and just increase the contrast right in this area. A little bit of my dark green and a little bit of that red violet modeled together here makes a beautiful, deep color. Now, see, it's one of the reasons why I want to use that red violet down here in the shadows is your red violet is cool. So we want to make sure we have that down into some of our shadows, okay? So I'll put this out here like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to warm up my colors a little bit. Here's some of my Hansa yellow, maybe a bit of my base yellow. Model that together, maybe even model with a little red. If I want a white color, then I can dirty it up with a little bit of my browns and greens and red violet here a little bit. Not too much red violet because we want it to be warm. And then I can start adding some white here. And I need a little more green just to get it kind of a grayish, yellowish, grayish color. I like that one there. And so I'll just model that together here. And this is what I can use to start to suggest my petals here. So I'm going to have a petal that comes out here like this. I'm just going to just lightly suggest my petals. Let's put one out here like this. Tap in, pick up a little more paint. Let's bring this one out like this. We'll bring one out here like this, here. So we'll have this pretty little blossom. And this one will have these guys come out here like this. And maybe this side one here. Notice that I'm not stroking in and out. Sometimes I'll just wiggle in and out like this too to create the petal. And the big thing is you want to have variation in what you do. Maybe on this one here, we'll come out this way. And we'll drop this one in like this. So I'm just getting a little bit of movement. What I'm actually doing here is creating a little bit of in and out movement, in and out to that center here, just a little movement for my flower. That modeled movement here for my flower. So you see, gently you start to see the flower start to come together here. This will be kind of like a bud, so we'll just kind of round this bud in here like this. Just see, I use my brush in many different directions, and I'm just kind of sketching it in here. So we'll kind of round this bud up here like that, there like that. Now what I'll do is I want a little more yellow here. And sometimes you'll see me say, okay, let's put some other colors in here. Like, let's take a little bit of our red, maybe a bit of our orange. I like that kind of color in these. And let's just add a little bit of that into the flower. And you see I wiggle that in. See how I just strike that like that and just kind of wiggle it in to incorporate light pressure. So I'll come in and I'll strike it, okay? And then I'll just lighten the pressure and just wiggle that, just kind of wiggle that in, lighten the pressure. And you can start putting in some of that color. Let's get a little more red-violet contrast here into the center. That'll be pretty. Here, a little more red-violet contrast into the center here. That's kind of pretty. There like that, okay. Wipe my brush. You'll notice I'm always wiping my brush. Matter of fact, this is the same paper towel from the last video, from the last one, the first one you watched. And then I'm going to come in, set my colors here like this, my whites, and now I can start tapping in, and I'll just kind of tap in until I really get that light edge that I want to have on that corner. It doesn't have to be a perfect edge, just a lighter edge. And this is what I can use to, you see I roll over right onto that chisel, and I can draw this petal. I can use this edge out here like this to kind of sketch in, just using the chisel of this brush, just light pressure, just the edge, and the chisel here. I can use that to kind of sketch this blossom, this petal here of the blossom out like that. Here. That's where I want the blossom. And then I'll just tap into a little more yellow, a little more light here. And I can push this in and out like this to get a little bit of movement. Now, you notice I'm doing short. You're going to see me say many times in everything, short stroking. Short stroking. This is short stroking. This is not long stroking like this that makes it stiff. I'm short stroking and pushing it too. But what I'm doing is building color. Sometimes I will soften that edge to lose the edge with my finger, so I get a little bit of a lost edge. If I want something to really come forward here, and let's step in just a bit more. If I want something to really come forward here, I can strike against it, just barely set the brush down. Strike against the top of the surface there like that. Wipe your brush and then just wiggle it a little bit to incorporate that into the movement of that petal. And then I'll re-strike again if I want it heavier. And just wiggle that in to incorporate that into that petal. Strike it, wiggle it. Okay, and so we'll build this edge up here as well. And let's just wiggle that right into that orange. There. Pick up a little, just tap right through it here. See, I'm not doing anything specific. You know, sometimes I'll just do like this, quick little hits, just to model up that area there and just wiggle through. Here, soften with your finger if you want them move, get some movement in and out of there. Soften with your finger. Let's put an edge onto this right here. So I'll just pick up just a little. Sometimes I say a soft edge, and that means I pick up just a little. And let's just wiggle a little there. And we'll let that stay kind of transparent back there like that. Okay? And we'll build a little bit more. Let's get a little fancy here and draw in a second layer. So to draw in a second layer, I already have the movement here. So to draw the second layer, I just pick up an edge here, and I just draw around like that. And so I already have the movement of those petals. So I just can add a second little petal in there just like that, just drawing that edge. Let's pick up a little more white. We'll define that edge just a bit more here. And then I'll want to build it up. We'll pick up a little more white and yellow. I will want to build it up right here like this so it sits up on top of the other one. Just tap that in a bit. Hit a little shadow there, so I'll just stop that. And let's build this edge up a bit more. Yeah. Notice I only take a couple of strokes each time before I reload. Pick up more paint. Don't stroke too long with one color, because what happens is that you just drag that color, that same color everywhere, and then you'll flatten out your painting. It doesn't help it. It actually hurts it. So we got that. Now that's a bit light there, so what I'm going to do is you can use a little dark or just your finger or whatever, and you can lift out. You can push out and lift out, and we'll lift out just to push that right into place there. So I'll lift that right out and push that right where I want there. Then I'll just model some of my yellows here like this, my two yellows. Just model this lightly, tap, maybe get almost an edge of Hansa yellow there. And we'll just kind of tap around like this to create that light center. And maybe pick up a little more Hansa and a little bit of white, just kind of tapped in on the edge there. And we can put a little more white right up into the very front and tap that around a bit for some more interest. Pick up just a bit more. You have that. And I'm going to take a little dark and tap a little more of that out there as well, just for some contrast of that. And you can add accent tones, like I'm going to have just a bit more orange into this, right in here, and just kind of soften that. Sometimes I use my finger just to soften that, but don't blend it in, just add the accent tone. Let's get a little bit of the red right here. Let's just strike that in like this, and just incorporate it, just like that. Get a little red-violet right here, increase the contrast right there. Always like to get that nice dark contrast poking up here to the front a bit more. There we go. Like that. Let's come over to this one. Model this in. Boom. Again like this. And draw the edge. So I'll just take a little bit of the light edge here and I can edge it. We'll let these come together here. Edge that one. Like that. These come together. So I pick up that edge just like that. Then this fusion brush will do the rest. It'll give you the softness onto the other side. I've tried this with so many other brushes and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I had a very good friend who teaches a lot. As a matter of fact, she's one of the most traveled teachers I know. And we were painting together, and she said, she says, this fusion brush is the secret of this whole thing. I said, it is. That's why this is one reason why we developed this painted simply around this fusion brush. It's a soft brush that is made you can control it like that, and it gives you that nice softer blend without having to work too hard. So I'll pick up that edge, draw that around, here. And now I'll strike across. Boom, just like that. That adds interest. Wipe the brush a bit and then incorporate it just like that. Okay? And that works so very well. Let's just lighten. Let's strike this a bit more here. Boom, like that. And like that. Now, if you want to make this petal look more transparent, take some of this dark, slide it in like this. Slide it in like that. Soften the exchange between those two like that. Then come back, push in the edge like this, back into that petal, and you have the edge of this more transparent looking. Okay, so you can control transparency or the look or the effect that you have on these flowers. Let's just add another little guy right in there like that. So once you have the movement set up, it's easy just to take the edge and add it in. And let's build the front of this one up a bit more right here. So I like to strike across. I like to move my brush in so many different ways. Let's put just a bit more of our red or our orange in here on this side. Okay. A little bit and just kind of let that fade away over there. And then we'll take our yellow here and our two yellows, model them together, tap them together. Just kind of tap around and see I roll my brush. Every time when I tap, I roll my brush to get different looks to it. So I'm not using the same side. That's very important. Not using the same side of the brush all the time, so I'll get all this variation and different looks to it. Then I'll pick up a little bit of my Hansa and some white. Here's a nice little highlight. And we'll tap that through. Let's tap through a little bit onto this side. Now if I get too much, I can just take a little dark on my brush, come back in, and push those back and soften that center down to what I want. But I do like to have a little dose of that red-violet right up here in the front to create that nice color contrast there. Right in there like that. Boom. Just, let that, don't mix that up. This is one of your, interest flowers. Don't mix it up, but I can add just a few more little strokes or touches there. Get a little more movement there. There we go. Fun little flowers. Painting fast, painting simple here. And let's go work on this. I'll just turn this around here for a second. Let's just strike a little color here. Just wiggle it to incorporate it. Even use your finger down here to incorporate it into its shadow. Let's take a little bit of our orange and red. And let's add a stroke of that in here. A strike to that. And if you notice this, when I paint like this, I'm painting really fast. And I'm not doing that for time. I'm doing that so I don't play. Okay? I mean, I'm one who will play and play and play and play and play with a painting. And you don't want to do that. Okay? You don't want to play because then you stiffen it. You do it again and again and again, you stiffen it. So when you're practicing these, and I do hope you practice these a lot, and I say this all the time, you don't want to just take one flower and make it perfect. No. You want to paint 10 flowers, and you want to paint them under a time limit. And you'll see me say many times on postings, on everywhere you talk to me on Facebook and forums and stuff, I always say, I time my paintings. You always say, this one took me 45 minutes because I time my paintings. I time my paintings because it keeps me from playing in it. So I give myself a certain amount of time to paint a painting, and I don't play with it. That's the big part. So I'm just going to add a little more mottled color in there. And we'll just grab that. We'll draw this around like this is another little, like a little flowery bud here. Hasn't opened up yet. If I take just a little edge and I draw an edge like this and pull down, now I could pull down almost like a stroke. I'll make it look like a little petal there that isn't quite opened up yet. There. And let's just take a little more of our dark green. Let's paint that through here. We can take a little more of our dark and paint that through in here. Now, as you come in to do leaves and stuff, I will keep my red violet into my shadows here, red violet and green, dark tone green, or tone dark green, and red violet. Then I go into generally go into my yellow greens to lighten it up here, and then eventually into my yellow greens and Hansa and a little bit of light color. So I like that. So I take a little yellow green, a little Hansa, a little bit of the white, model those together here like this, and I can strike on and just pull in and start to build, just like you build a petal, start to build. You can softly incorporate that with your finger, which is what I like to do sometimes to get the variation to it, to incorporate these together. We'll give just the idea of movement back in there. But we're going to lighten this front one up a bit more, maybe give it an edge. So some of my Hansa and yellow, green, and white here, just to model together and give it a little edge here, so it will come up in front of this other one here. And then I'll just pull in. Sometimes I pull in very dramatically like this to give some streaks to the leaf. This other side, I'm going to let it maybe do just a little bit. Let it mostly fade away over here like that. Let it be soft and fade away. We'll maybe put a idea of a leaf or something in there. And then as you come out here, we will just take and model up some of our colors with some of our browns. I'll dirty this up here like this. And I'm just going to give some suggestions of the leaves. First, kind of soft in different sizes. And you want to use a brush. And I'll change the color a little bit. A little more yellow into it. Maybe sometimes a little bit of red in there. So the color changes. You don't want to create a rainbow, but you do want to change your colors up through the painting. And this, I love to paint out and just give all kinds of different, the brush just does its work here. Give all kinds of different movements to it here. And again, paint fast. Here's a different little shape here. We'll paint up a different leaf shape here. Use your finger to incorporate some of it. Let's give the idea a dirty white. Maybe there was another one right down here. Little blossom. And just wiggle a little color in here like this. And see, when you're painting casually like this, the viewer will see that their eye will turn that into like a little blossom. Okay, their eye will do it. Let's give a little green movement there, and a little bit more here, out to there like that. Let's turn this into a kind of a soft leaf. Then I'll come through, add some. Let's take some red violet and our dark green, and I'll do this. You'll see me do this several times. Sometimes I'll add black to it if I want a really a lot of contrast to it, but I will pull in some shadow contrast sometimes into the leaves here. You can use this to negative paint, like maybe I want to add a little bit more of a turn into this petal there a little bit or something like that. You can do that. Just pull some out. Use your finger a lot. I use my finger a lot. And as you come around some of the backs, you want to let those shadows fade as well. You don't want to do too much with the shadows, like right back out in here. You want them to fade just as well, and so that they don't have as much interest as well. That's a little bit too much of a bug bite right here on that one. So I'm just going to put my white right back. Here we go. So you can just paint in and paint out really easy. Let's put a little bit of light. One of the things I do on blossom sometimes is a little bit of light stroked up right here from the base. A little bit of a stroke. And that will keep that. What this does is the light color will direct, with that contrast, will direct your eye right back up in here towards the center of that design there, like that. That's good. And I hit that green, so I'll just take and put a little bit right back in there like that. And let's just come through with lights and pop these edges just a bit so you can come back in and add little details. You can add some little strokes of lighter yellow-green in there if you want to lighten things up. Very, very casual. Here's a very casual presentation for you. Will you be able to, if you're, been decorative painting for 20 years, will you be able to paint this first time through? No. It's because you're going to have stroke habits and they're going to be a little stiff. But you take a step towards it, okay? You take a step towards it. But it's fun little blossom. They're fun to paint. Fun little techniques. Paint fast. Wiggle the brush. Use your hand. Your hand should look like this. Your hand should look like this when you're all done, okay? So start in through the lessons, okay? You'll start with the first lesson of painting some blossoms and then go into the apple blossoms and then go into the hibiscus and potentilla, and you get and start some of those different blossoms, different shapes, different movements, sometimes adding streaks. And there's lots of step forties along the way. And then I'll come back at you. We'll paint again as we get up in towards the bank rows and stuff when we start weaving petals. Okay, I'll see you over there. Have fun.